Good evening. Welcome to all our guests. Welcome to all great learners. Well, our parents that are joining us online. Thank you for taking time out to join us on this special evening, whereby we'll be having a discussion on finding your career path to passion and purpose. And tonight, I'm joined by our special guest, Prof. Zak Nel and Zak Nel Jr. Just an introduction. My name is Sandy Mbele. I'm the Student Recruitment Co-Navigator at the Vega IIE at the Pretoria campus. I form part of the management team there, and my core role is actually to engage with teachers, engage with parents, as well as learners to help them navigate their path into the right careers and career paths using our ways in which Vega direct their people. We have qualifications in brand, business, and design. And in my 11 years within this industry, I have found a lot of passion in assisting students in getting them into the right career path. And I'm very passionate in building the private education as a better choice for students and also influencing teenagers and young professionals into a purposeful future. Before we even get into it, let me just go through the order of tonight's session. So I'm going to be introducing Prof. Zak Nel and Zak Nel Jr., and then we're going to go into an introduction of what career counseling is about and get into a general discussion thereof. Thereafter, we'll open the floor up for Prof. Zak Nel Jr. just to answer questions from our students, our learners, and the parents that are joining us virtually. And that's where you'll be hearing the voice of our campus head in Cape Town, Anthea Whitehead. She'll be joining in to man all those questions. And thereafter, we'll be closing off the session. Before I even get any further, welcome, Prof. Zak Nel. Prof. Zak Nel is a professional and passionate career counselor with a special interest in learning strategies amongst young students. He has a trained generation of counseling psychologists, and he has developed a host of career counseling instruments. In his profession, he fuses international modules of career counseling with school and university education, as well as the world of work. He's very involved in the higher education sector in South Africa and serves on various academic boards and student scholarship organizations. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you, Sandy. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And also, today we're being joined by Zak Nel Jr. And Zak actually started his career within the marketing and management, or the degree that he did in that space. However, after he spent quite a number of time in practice with his father, he started developing interest in career counseling, psychometric assessment, and assisting students in reaching their full potential. Okay, and currently Zak is a registered psychometrist in a private practice, and he's currently completing his master's with an intent of completing his PhD by 2025. Prof. Zak Nel, you're actually planning to be following in your father's footsteps by also running your own practice, but also bringing in your own youthful flair to the career counseling sector. And currently you're under the supervision of psychologists and you're practicing as a psychologist.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we really appreciate you taking time to be with us.
It's a big pleasure.
Okay.
Big pleasure.
Before we go any further, for our parents joining us today and the learners that are joining us, would you explain to us and just give them an understanding as to what is career counseling?
Sandy, good evening to the parents as well as the learners, and I know there's some teachers watching as well tonight. Good evening to you all. We are very privileged to be here. But in any case, career counselling has been my passion of my life. I've been involved for over 40 years. I've done some research on it as well, and I've trained many career counsellors myself. But it's not about me. It is about what is a professional career counselling service. It means where you would use tests, and nowadays tests would include the psychometric instruments, would include some neuroscience instruments as well, to show us what are the dominant thinking patterns of people that would be explained. It would also mean having professional interviews with people, and especially nowadays how you would use the information about careers in a professional manner. So it is really, I'm starting to think about career counselling these days as being an educational specialist, really. And if I can just illustrate it, it would also incorporate thinking about international study opportunities, because many, many young people out there, and their parents would pay testimony to it, would have aspirations to study internationally. So for instance, I would make a point, for instance, to know, let's say, how a visual design degree at Maastricht in Holland would look, how it would compare to something in Glasgow, how it would compare to something like maybe that you can get at American University, like at the University of Minnesota. You know, it's this kind of specialist knowledge that one needs to dig in and be a master of. But this is more or less what I would reckon is a professional career counsellor.
And if you may just add on, Zak, what would you say is the importance of career counselling?
In today's era, I think it's vitally important, especially for young learners. It provides, especially with the boys, it gives them a bit of direction. It gives them something to work towards. It's very important. You know, with so many degrees out there at the moment, and with the ever-changing world of work, to find something that is your passion, is your niche, is something that I think can't be measured. It's something that will provide great happiness in your life.
Yeah.
So that's career counselling. We aim, as not only with the assessments that we use, but Prof, especially with how your brain takes information in and then uses that information. That's very important. So that's career counselling, you know, that we try to.
Okay. I hope that actually clarifies it for the people watching. And also, you're talking about the ever-changing world. We had this discussion earlier on about students always come in and ask you, the world is changing. How do I best prepare for that? How would you advise one to best prepare for a career with this ever-changing world? People are asking, what are the best skills to have currently? Is there a specific skill that you need to have? Or what is it that you'd advise that they look into?
Certainly my heart bleeds for the young people out there as well as for parents. You know, because it's very true what you said. It's an ever-changing, ever-new world with new work opportunities. And not to scare people out there, but I just want to say I've been involved with a university project where we came up with just in a certain direction of 163 new job titles since the COVID. And we're talking about the last 2 or 3 years. I've got the list here, but if I could just mention 1 or 2 of these new job titles. For instance, have any heard about an acoustic consultant? Have any of you heard about a spatial information officer? Have any of you heard about a remote sensing specialist? These are the new job titles. I'm not saying this to scare you off or to make you afraid, but I just want to say we live in a wonderful, wonderful new world with incredible opportunities, ever-changing new job titles, but it certainly brings some uncertainty and some anxiousness as well. But it's not only the world of work that changes, it is also the people that grow and develop and changes, you know. So it's those factors. It's the world of work that changes, but also people that develop and grow and changes. And I know this sounds like a bit of a father and son presentation tonight, but maybe Zak can pay testimony of how he has changed, you know, just to give some information out there.
Yeah. So I started my degree, my professional life off with I did a BCom management and marketing degree, and then honours after that, because I thought that was going to be my end goal, was to go into corporate, and then started off, worked for the banks as a corporate a management consultant, and then I moved over to a steel company where I was their branding manager. And, after 5 years of that, and then another 5 years, I really became interested in career counselling and psychology, and effectively had to build on those degrees and start over with psychology, and now only finishing my master's. So I'm a testament to how people change through time, and how you need to constantly adapt and keep on learning. And I think that is the most important thing, is to constantly strive towards keeping on learning, learning new skills. That's very important.
I'm sure you'd agree with me that, with the current generation, they're very ambitious. They want to be out there. And I think sometimes parents also struggle a bit to just maybe try and guide them to that direction or this direction. And if you may, maybe just for the parents that have joined us in today, how would you maybe advise a learner to make a right decision that will actually fuel their passion and purpose, whatever it is that they want to do in life?
So now I suppose that question would apply to many of the students that sit out there. I suppose there could be quite a number of grade 12s, even grade 11s, that at this stage they might be uncertain, especially after the things that we said about the ever-changing world of our people changing. But I also want to say, nowadays we speak about the next step. What is the next step? We don't even talk about job titles. We ask them, what is the next step in your life? Because we take it step by step. Now, I'll bet you, to answer your question, 90% of the students that sits out there would aspire to study at the university next year. So the next step is studying at the university. And you don't need to ready to go for professional career counselling. If I can give you 3 telling factors in South Africa that would help you. The first thing is which school you come from, because we know that's got a huge influence on choices. The subjects that students have chosen at the end of grade 9, especially the 3 elective subjects, and then the marks. If you have that information, you've made it 80% down the track already. So I just repeat, the school, the subject, especially the 3 electives, and then the marks. That could be a very telling factor. Maybe can I illustrate it to you, Sandy? Let's say you get somebody that's got physical science and IT and maybe accounting, quite a classical package, versus somebody that's got maybe physical science and life sciences and do quite well, versus somebody that maybe got CAT and design and maybe business studies, or somebody that got geography and physical science and maybe even nowadays sports science. You see, there's a reason in South Africa why people would choose a certain package of elective subjects. And that can be a very, very big guiding factor. And then if you've got the marks, you can actually make a very informed decision. Can I just illustrate it to you? And I know this sounds a bit ambitious, but if you get a student with physical science, IT, maybe EGD, and that student can achieve 70, 80%, then one could really look at some of the innovative new engineering degrees like data engineering, mechatronic engineering, computer engineering, those wonderful new areas. But if a student has the same package of subjects and is able to score something like 60s, then they would be more suitable to go into maybe even the data science or computer engineering or, those kind of things. So this is why I say, if parents and students out there think about why you have chosen those 3 electives, look at your marks, and it can be a true guiding factor for you on your way forward.
Thank you so much for that, Prof. So would you say, in that case, with a student that's currently undecided and is under pressure now, parents are like, okay, you're almost done with matric, it's time for you to apply for next year. That would be the best practice? Would you say moving that route of checking the marks, the schools, that would be the best practice to try and make a decision?
Indeed, Sandy, indeed. Because as I said, I think 80 to 90% that sits out there would most probably be able to see them at the university next year.
Yeah.
And using those guidelines would help you to make an informed choice. And nowadays, in our country, we are truly blessed with incredible, not only public universities, but may also private universities that are world-class institutions that are so related to the job market and also creating international job opportunities, Yeah. So it's normally, I would say, the next step I would say is to target 3 or 4 of these universities and you use those electives and your marks as a guideline of how you can apply. By the way, I just want to say, 1 degree, the advantage of studying at university, and I'm not saying university beginning and end of all, but I just want to say one advantage of studying at the university, for instance, I've taken one of the business degrees and I came up with about 722 job titles that can be associated with 1 degree. So studying with 1 degree can open incredible opportunities for people.
Thank you for that. Also what we've picked up, as I said, I get to engage with a lot of parents, students, teachers, and consult with them. And one of the things that we encounter a lot is a student coming in and they've got multiple options that they want to get into. I just want to pose this question to you, Zak. How would you guide a student that's got so much passion for different career paths, for different titles, job titles? How would you?
If I was the student, I would, let's say they've selected 5 degrees that they find interesting. My first step would be to go to each faculty. For example, you can take Vega or you can take the University of Johannesburg, just as an example. Go to the second year and look at the modules. Look at exactly each module, what the module is that you're taking. In that, it would give you a broad description of what you're going to be studying. And then you can kind of narrow down your choices. And that's the starting point, But you've got to be realistic looking at your marks as well.
Yeah.
You can't, unfortunately, apply to study medicine if you have a 50% average. That won't work. But there are many, many options. And then Vega is one great option to have. I believe it's when Prof does the testing, he sees a lot of creative kids, but the assessments also provide a broader view. So, which falls under creative, there are 17 different types of creative thinkers out there. It can be visual, it can be acoustic. So there's so many options, and I think that is the most important thing, is looking at each degree individually and seeing what the degree has to offer for you, what you can learn from that.
Okay.
So
speaking of creativity and creative students, that is like our daily bread at Vega. And you find that the student, they know that they're creative. They come in with a parent. And I think currently that's what the current generation, almost everybody wants to get into the creative space. But it's an industry that is not very comfortable or familiar for some parents. And I think that the question that most parents would pose is my child going to make money out of this career? I think the one thing also that I think we need to look into, how would we assist the parent to actually support and guide the student and understand the student's career choice? How can we support them in making that decision and understanding that decision that the students are taking?
Sandy, there's an older generation of parents that would be reluctant to encourage their students to go into creative things because they think they're going to be unemployed. This was the notion of an older generation. But can I tell you a very true thing? The world of business evaluates creativeness as the most important thing that you can bring in, even to places like banks and big institutions. Creativeness is the most valuable asset a young person can have. It is incredibly important for nowadays, and you can make a great deal of money and a very, very good living out of being creative. And I know there's different kinds of creativeness, as Zak has said. There's even creative thinking, creative problem solving, but this is a very, very valuable asset. And if I can say to parents, if you've got a creative child, please accept your child for what that person is with his creativeness. If you accept him, if you encourage him, you'll make a very, very successful entrepreneur maybe one day. Don't fight the creativeness. Enjoy it. Find joy in it, and let's develop the creativeness a bit more.
Thank you for that. Can you end off by saying that the careers actually do pay quite a lot? They actually have fun while doing it.
Can I
Yeah.
quickly share a true story with you?
Yeah.
Parents, this is for the parents. There was a young student, she came to me here from one of the Joburg schools in grade 11. I've suggested that she must do what is called visual communication design, and she did that degree. By the way, she did it at Stellenbosch University, and she completed the degree 3 years ago. She came to say hello the other day to the maid. She parked outside with a yellow new Porsche. And I said, wow, your dad is really spoiling you now, you know. She said, no, I bought it myself. I said, how on earth did you do that? She said, after she completed the degree, she did an internship in Swakopmund in Namibia. And she discovered how good she is in putting little, of these Namib desert artifacts together. And she said, since she's been able to put it together, she found the German tourists can't buy enough of it, so she can make her own price. She says she's booked out for 3 years coming. And so each month she earns about 200,000 rand.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's a true story.
As well, in creativity. Okay, and then also, I think everybody now just wants financial freedom, wants to be independent, and I think the learners, they start quite early, wanting to be entrepreneurs, running their own businesses. I mean, some of them will tell you, I'm taking a gap year because I just want to start my own business. And there's a whole culture now where there's markets where they can actually market whatever products they have. How would you advise a student, grade 11, grade 12, that thinks, okay, I've got this whole business idea and I think it's going to boom, and they don't want to study. However, the parents can see that education is a perfect background and backup to have. How would you intervene in assisting that background?
Yeah, Sunny, we live in a wonderful world. It's a generation that can be very entrepreneurial. But can I just say, we've done a big research project at one of the business schools where we've looked at which entrepreneurs can be successful. And there are 3 very, very telling factors for the young entrepreneurs out there. First telling factor, you must be able to budget. You must know what money you're going to need to run your firm. You must be able to do cash flow management, because a lot of the entrepreneur companies go downstream because they can't manage the cash flow. Third thing, you must be able to understand contracts. It's quite interesting because very often with these entrepreneurial companies, they would sign contracts and then they would be either lose their intellectual property or they would lose their footprint. So it's very, very, those are the 3 most telling factors out there. Where do you get those knowledge, the skills? From studying it, because this is the knowledge that you need. There's lots of research that's shown that a person that starts, and there are exceptions, and I suppose parents out there can quote many examples, but in general, 90% of students that would start their companies directly after matric would fail at it. If they started with something like a degree, it doesn't mean it will guarantee success, but it would at least guarantee about 50 to 60% chance of success. But can I just say, the young budding entrepreneurs out there, once you've got to know how you can manage your cash flow, how you can budget, and how you can understand a contract, the next thing is think about the product or a service. There must be, a company must be built around that, a product or a service, and see how you can differentiate yourself in that market.
And I think what I would normally get thereafter is the student would be confused as to the type of qualification. Would you direct them to a specific qualification? Or how would we go about in guiding a student like that with the qualification?
Okay, so that is very, very important. Zak has referred to it just now. And the point is, you need to know what you are in when you look at the qualification like a degree, because it's an investment in money, it's an investment in time, it's an investment in studying, it's an investment in sacrificing sometimes. So one must really know what you're in for. This is why, as Zak alluded to it, one must know exactly what are the modules. It's very interesting. Sometimes I always ask students if they study medicine, I said, would you know what are the modules that goes into medicine degree? And often I'm surprised they don't know what they're going to study, but they want to study medicine, So this is a very telling factor. And all of these modules and the information are available online. Any good university would have it online. So I would advise, like Zak said, look at the modules, and you would find, for instance, in some degrees there are very specialist degrees, and normally I found with the specialist degrees, can I tell you a very good example, like actuarial science. You don't have a choice, the subjects are prescribed. It is typical maths and mathematical statistics, risk management, economics, those kind of things that goes into it. But I found if you want to go for a specialist degree, those students would normally know exactly what they want to go for. Yeah. But for the versatile students that you referred to, look at the modules. Some degrees are actually designed exactly for versatile, creative people. And if you look at the modules, especially the second year modules, as Zak said, you will be able to make an informed choice. And this is the critical thing. Please do your homework on the content of what you want to study. And if you don't know, because some of these subjects got very strange names, by the way, but if you don't know what the subjects mean, like digital media studies, they would also supply the core curriculum normally online. And interesting, most of the universities with the degrees, they would also indicate which are the job opportunities that goes with it. Zak's got an example here, for instance, with one kind of degree, the job opportunities that goes with that degree.
Yeah. So there's so many, but just to say that, so for graphic design, publishers, design agencies, in-house creative designers, departments, freelance, depending on what degree you decided to study and what your majors were, because if I can take myself as an example, when I studied my first degree, my electives I chose specifically was management and brand management, was my main core that I focused on, which I absolutely loved. And then I moved into that corporate role. That was something that I wanted to do. And then with my psychology, I absolutely loved the psychometric part of it. So that was my other main focus, was psychology, focusing on the assessments of personality types, on IQ, EQ, that. So there's a job. So you've got to decide what you like, what you think you can do with your degree, because it's a return on investment, for the money, for the capital that you put in, the time that you put in. And so I think that's important, but there's so many options at the moment. Just Vega alone has 22 different, ways to study. So it's quite a difficult thing, but luckily these learners are quite clever. They're well informed and they can Google. So I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Thank you so much for that answer. I just want to open up the floor for us to just answer questions in the chat. So I'm just going to welcome Anthea.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Sandy, and thank you, Prof. Nel and Zak. So we've got a few questions, some that have come up in the chat box and some that were posed before our event in the RSVP. So I'm going to start with one question, and perhaps I'm going to pose that to Prof. Nel. What questions should parents or learners ask the institution when they visit them?
Yes. I would say you need to ask a serious questions. And normally, can I just say, it's very wise to visit the institution because it makes it real. Very often just looking at the institution, it will make a student identify with this institution or not. So you don't really need to wait for the open days, but go and visit the institution. Second thing is, please speak to one of the student consultants, because they are normally very informed and they would be able to give you the accurate information. But the most important thing is ask about what are the modules that would go into a degree, because this is very telling. If you don't know what the modules would entail, ask the consultant, they can explain it to you. So make very sure you know what are the modules from the first year to the last year. See if there are electives and what are the implications of choosing the electives in a certain degree, but ask about the modules. Second thing, ask about the fees. That's very important, because some of these degrees can get quite expensive and one needs to budget for it and financially what you're in for it. And then I would say it's a question that you ask yourself as well as a prospective student. what would you like to get out of your studies and the institution where you study? You know, that's very, very important to know that, because some institutions would be very professional with very specialist options, others would be broader. And often for young people, it's also who are the students that would study with you, who's going to be your social friends, who's the peer group that you are. And these are, and often, if I can also say, you can also ask who are the tutoring team, who are the navigators, who are the teachers that are involved in that degree. Because very often you would get some very great specialist people that are acknowledged leaders in their fields. So those are the kind of questions. But I would say the most important is ask what are the modules, what are the career implications, and what are the costs involved in it.
Great, thank you so much. A question from one of the scholars is, what if I fail matric or do not get a bachelor's pass?
Okay. The chances in South Africa of somebody failing matric in the people that watch this program is very, very slim. It may sound very strange, but it's very slim. If you don't get a bachelor's pass, very, very often I would find students would still have access to a diploma or most probably even a higher certificate. So the typical viewer out there, I don't think they will fail. But if there's a hiccup and you get access to, let's say, a higher certificate, you can still use that to your great advantage, because very often higher certificates, which you can study at the private universities, would be acting as a bridging course that can take you into a degree. And many of the higher certificates are, in any case, also professional certificates. So for students that are a bit uncertain about if they're going to gain a bachelor's pass, please look at the higher certificates as well.
Okay, perfect. I think a point of contention that always comes up, and maybe Zak, you can answer this, is it a good idea to take a gap year after leaving school?
Yeah, this is just a personal view, and that, you know, people differ, but I don't believe it is. I think that most young people get lost, you know, that year trying to find themselves, and I don't think they are. I think they can better find themselves by directing themselves at an institution. By, let's say, for example, you did not get a bachelor pass, but you are now doing a certificate. You're still learning, you're still growing, you know, by doing that certificate and then building on your career. So, no, unfortunately, in my personal experience, I don't believe it is worth it to take a gap year.
And then a question that always gets asked, is it better to go and study internationally or to stay in South Africa?
That is a very important question. Can I chip in there? You know, it's not only South Africans, but internationally. The young generation would aspire to study, let's say, internationally. And it's a good thing, because we live in an international job market and studying opportunities are very accessible in other countries. But to study overseas, one needs to take two things into mind. First thing, typical for South Africans, you need to study in a country where you can actually study in English. So the language of tuition becomes very important. You know, it doesn't matter. There are some English-speaking universities, for instance, in Germany, but they are weaker universities. So the language of tuition becomes incredibly important. The second option is, what is it going to cost? And that is very typical. You know, can I just give you an idea here? If you want to study in the UK as a non-UK citizen, it with the new Brexit fees, it will most probably cost the South African something like 1.2 million rand per year to study in the UK. Is a degree of 1.2 million rand per year in the UK so much more advantageous against, let's say, a degree in South Africa? You can never compare it. South African options would be better. So I just want to say, it is the money that you pay for your education. Please compare that. Education worldwide has become a huge industry. It is the biggest export industry that Australia have, for instance. You know, it's become a commercialized thing. The UK, for instance, have more than 500,000 international students. So governments know they can make a lot of money out of it. But be very careful. Look at what it would cost. You know, as parents, you don't want to spend your pension fund just on 1 year of studies for a child. I often say to young people, the statistical prediction models that I work with would predict that the typical South African would work at the age of 25 years overseas. There's an 80% chance that will happen. But to a South African qualification, you can still work overseas. You don't need to study overseas to work overseas. But it's a value for money decision. That becomes a critical thing.
Yeah, it's just just to chip in quickly. You have to remember our degrees are still internationally recognized. We have great public and private universities, which I think is fantastic for South Africa. We still have very highly recognized degrees, professional and your general degrees. So to study, if you have that financial option, yes, you can, but to stay local is also a very good thing. And we need the knowledge to stay in South Africa.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Another question that's been posed, is it helpful to have psychometric testing done? Are they helpful?
No, it's indeed very helpful. And we are into an absolutely wonderful, wonderful new generation of psychometric tests that is actually based on artificial intelligence, you know. And you get the most incredible things. And it's very, very useful, and I can really recommend it. But again, I can also say it's a value for money decision. Sometimes I find, and I'll say it to the detrimental of my own career, I find sometimes people are over-tested. And they, you know, if you test a person for a whole day, and they must go back the next day to be tested more and more and more, and you generate a 300-page report for them, it serves very little purpose. You know, they're so flooded with technical information. So one needs to be very selective, and as a prospective student who wants to go for career counselling or psychometric tests, make very sure what are the tests that's going to be done. Let people explain it to you, look at the cost of those tests. It is useful, but it isn't the beginning and the end of it. So I just want to mention, and there's no secret recipe that these tests is going to reveal some great new secrets for you. It will most probably just emphasize a lot of things that you know about yourself.
Perfect. And that also ties into how important are NBTs, national benchmark testing?
I'm sorry to chip in here again, Zak. But I just want to say, the NBTs stands for National Benchmark Test, and in South Africa has been introduced because some of the universities have lost confidence in some of the schools. You know, as some of the schools, and this is public knowledge, you would actually buy your grade 11 report. So they've introduced another measurement, which is known as the National Benchmark Test. It is something that you write online or in a paper format, but you can only do it in matric, and it's an additional measurement that some of the universities would use now to admit students. At some universities like UCT, you can only apply to the university once you've got an NBT booking. But I just want to say, in the South African university circles, there's a big debate about the usefulness of the NBTs now, and some of the universities have completely dropped it. If I can just show you examples, Pretoria has completely dropped it. Some have dropped it, except if you want to apply to for a legal degree. But at most of the medicine schools, they would still look at the NBTs as a selection instrument. But that would be most probably just for students who want to go into medicine. So be very circumspect about at which university they would require it. I think this is going to be an ongoing debate for the next 3 or 4 years. But I just want to mention, students that want to study in America, it is very useful to do something similar to the NBTs, and that's the SAT. For South Africans, I would still say it is a total requirement that you must have an SAT score to apply to an American university.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. A question from a parent, and I think it's something that all parents struggle with, is how do I motivate my child to keep focused on their grade 12 in this crazy era of social media and constant oversharing of information?
Yeah, if I can quickly, I think yes, you must set guidelines, you know, ground rules, but you must support them. And unfortunately, with social media, these kids have a mass amount of information at their disposal. Your role as parent would be to guide them in reaching the end goal. So don't pressure them. Don't stand on their heads and say, you're going to stay now. Help them achieve their goals. Speak to them. Listen to them. I think that's the most important thing, is ask your children, what do they want to achieve in life? And by listening to that, you'll be guiding them, you'll be helping them. I think, Prof.
I agree with Zak. This is very important what Zak said.
parents out there, our poor matrics. I cannot tell you how people are under pressure nowadays, how anxiety, how they are overcome with anxiety, uncertainty. I've never seen a generation working 40 years in this kind of environment of people that's so anxious, so uncertain, and my heart bleeds for them. We've seen the effect of COVID. We've seen the effect of the ever-changing world. We've seen the effect of social media on our kids. My heart really, really bleeds for this matric. They don't need extra pressure, honestly. The best way you can do is accept your child for what that child is. And once you've done the matric, just remember, what is the most important preciousness that you've got in life? Is your relationship with your child. I can vouch myself in between Zak and his mom. I think it was a good relationship that we had with Zak that has brought him to where he is now. It's a relationship with the parents that's the most important thing, not by being on the child all the time. Go and study, how important is your matric? I'll bet you every matric in this country know how important is the matric. Just by telling them all the time, go and study, you just make them more anxious, more uncertain. Just accept them for they are. In any case, if a matriculant at this stage doesn't know where they or how they must study or how much they must study, then it won't help now. In any case, to pressurize them. Enjoy your child. This is what I'm trying to say.
It's also true, and that's very much from a parent's point of view. What happens if some advice for children or scholars in terms of what happens if their parents aren't confident in their career choice or their choice of qualification? What advice would you give them from your perspective?
I want to tell two true stories. The one story is a boy came to me the other day, and his dad sat across him, and it's a typical Afrikaans for a family. And the dad told me, as we started the conversation, he told his son, "Jy beter doen, hè? Jy beter doen. Jy weet hoe belangrik is dit. Jy weet hoe jy moet wiskunde 80% kry." And you know what the son did? He took out an old piece of paper, and it was his dad's matric report. And he said, "Dad, look at your school report. Look what you've done. You've barely passed maths, So I just want to say, parents, we all aspire to have the best things for our kids. But remember, if you accept your child for what it is, if you accept them for the career choice that they've made, that is the best way you can do it. Sometimes in our own experience, our own wisdom, and also looking at financial security, we tend to make choices that we think would be good for us, not for our child. So allow them even to make some mistakes. But Zak is a very good example where he's gone maybe a route which I thought maybe was not quite right for him, but I've let him go down that route. And look where he is today. And we sit as a team, and we've got a very good working relationship. So I can pay testimony to that from my own life experience.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's good advice. We have a question from one of our guests just asking, currently there are quotas in place for certain degrees. How does this play out when providing career guidance? Is this taken into account?
Sorry, can I just come in again, Zak? The quotas are exaggerated. The quotas are only for a few specialist areas at a few specialist universities. Typically, the quotas are for medicine students and for medical-related careers. But if we, let's say, if you're a non-quota student, it is something that's out of your reach. It's something that you can't manage. Don't worry about it. It's the same story that I say. If you start to worry, what can you do? You can't do anything about it. What you can worry is what you can do as best possible to make yourself the best possible candidate. So be very careful. Don't use quotas as an excuse not to achieve. The quotas is not a big thing in our country.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we've also got a question in terms of applications. Is it worthwhile to apply immediately, or shall one wait a few days before closing dates of applications at different universities? Is there a preferred time? Should one do it immediately or wait?
So most universities in IIE-Vega as well have opened their the applications already. And depending on the degree, specialist degrees, for example, medicine would close, I know at Wits at the end of May, at Pretoria at the end of June, but that's only specialist degrees. So I would apply, take my time, but start applying to a minimum of 3 universities. So I would start applying, yes.
Can I just add to what Zak said on that note? For the matrics, it is quite a motivational factor in their lives if their application goes in, because it makes it real. So I would say parents and matrics out there, apply now, start to apply. Can I just say why you must apply? Some of the universities have boldly now artificial intelligence factor in their application process. It's a computerized system. Whereas in one university, if you apply for certain degrees, you can apply for 3 options, and the university's online application system would even generate a 4th option for you according to the data file that they've got on that school and the subjects and the history of those students. So by applying, it's the best career counselling that you can go through, because you can test the system. If you wait too long, sometimes with some of the universities, they've got a first applications get first place, and then some of the degrees are full. I don't want to pressurize you, but please apply at this stage. It's the golden opportunity in life to apply now. Test the waters. It's fairly cheap to apply to South African universities.
And remember, you apply with your grade 11 marks, just for the parents out there. So your promotion marks.
One quite specific question's come up in terms of universities is, which universities offer BEd with mathematics and English? Will I be able to work overseas with it?
Can I just check which universities would offer? Is it the BEd?
Yeah, BEd, sorry, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
BEd, with mathematics and English.
I would reckon virtually all of the universities that offer the BEd in a very specific BEd format is the one with the senior and further education and training. Everyone that would allow that opportunity for students to include that in the elective subjects.
And you also say that's public, and then you get private as well. But if you type in BEd, senior phase, FET, then at Google, it will bring it up with the different universities.
I have a question as well regarding maths. Is what is the validity of AP maths in terms of points when applying to university for further studies? Does it count for anything?
AP maths.
Yeah.
There's different formats of maths now.
I know. Yeah.
We got the old AP maths. By the way, the Afrikaans schools sometimes still call it alpha wiskunde,
Yeah.
But nowadays, in most cases, it's called FS, further studies maths. It serves a purpose, can I just say, because it adds some very, very specific calculus knowledge to a student. It's very, very advantageous to have it if you want to study engineering. But interesting enough, if you do the FS maths, in most cases, the overseas universities would equal it to A-level maths. And so it would open great opportunities at some of the prestigious overseas universities. But on that note, can I just say, it is not for everyone out there. You must be I would say I would only attempt FS maths if I can score about 70% at least in the core maths.
Okay, and I think just to come back to Zak, your answer on grade 11 results is, which term results or reports should you use to apply for at universities? This is your final report?
Your final report, yes. By the school, you have to scan in your final report. You'll see on your applications, scan that in, and please don't differentiate. Please don't. It's a legal document that you sign with the universities, so they will actually expel you if you lie. It's quite a big thing for them.
Thanks for that. I've got a question from Marlies. My son wants to become a criminal psychologist, but it does not seem like he can study such a degree. He can only study either criminology or psychology. Which of these two would be a better option to go with?
Can I comment on that?
Okay.
There's a bit of a misunderstanding. Sometimes in America, they would call it a criminal psychologist. In South Africa, we actually refer to it as a forensic psychologist. The best combination of that would be for a student to do psychology with criminology and law. So to get there eventually as a postgraduate student, the best would be to apply for a BA law and make psychology one of the majors. But you won't see, as an undergraduate student, no university in South Africa, in fact, not even overseas universities, would have a degree as an undergraduate as a criminal psychologist. But it would not normally mean taking criminology or psychology and some legal units. So in South Africa, it's best to apply for a BA law. And that can eventually, but remember, you must do an honours in psychology and you must do a master's in forensic psychology. By the way, I just want to mention on that, I have found personally one of the best universities internationally to do that, again, is Maastricht in Holland. They've run a wonderful, wonderful master's degree as in forensic psychology. But there's many options in America as well to do it. But the starting point would be to do a BA law of psychology.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We just got a question regarding the field of engineering. What is the status of engineering in the job market in South Africa?
Sorry, the status.
Yeah. So do you what is the status of the engineering job market in South Africa? Is it flourishing? Is there still a demand for it?
Can I start on this note? There was an economic review that showed our country can only achieve a 3% growth on the economic base, only 3% growth, if we produce 60,000 engineers per year. Currently, we battle to produce about 3,000 or 4,000. The growth of a company, economic growth, is dependent on the number of engineers that they have. It's an incredible important thing, especially nowadays. We've got the status of engineering is fantastic. You get the most incredible new engineering degrees, even in South Africa. And we've got some great engineering faculties. We can be so proud of the engineering faculties. It would run from Pretoria right through to Stellenbosch to UCT. We can be very proud of our engineers. South African engineers are in big demand overseas as well. I would reckon about 20% of all our engineers work abroad. But engineering is not, again, for everybody. Yeah. You must have a passion for maths and for science to be able to do engineering. Preferably, I'd also include IT. But if you do engineering, it's a wonderful qualification to have. But just make very sure what kind of engineering you would like to do, because they are incredible new, from mechatronics to data engineering to information engineering to even biomedical engineering as well. So please do your homework on it. Yeah.
In your opinion, what do you think are the top 5 careers currently to pursue? It's a very tough question, I know.
Can I venture an opinion? I would say anything that has to do with data science, with artificial intelligence, obviously nowadays, anything that has to do with maths, statistical maths, in anything that has to do with IT. But again, if I say that, it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone, but it would be those kind of typical 4th industrial revolution, even moving to the 5th industrial revolution careers. It would be those kind of things.
Thank you so much. And my closing question is, where else could scholars and parents go to get advice or guidance?
Can I just say from my experience, you don't really always need to go to a professional career counsellor. And I just want to say, I've found, and really I'm not promoting private education, but I found the private institutions got incredible good student consultants where they can consult with us, and they've got a passion for young people. They can consult with them. They're normally quite well trained. So I would go and speak to a student consultant at the private universities. The problem with the public universities, they're so overwhelming big, they become so bureaucratic that they can't deal with individual cases really so well anymore. But I found this is the niche that private institutions have gained for themselves. They've appointed these wonderful student consultants that are well informed, and they're not salespeople, by the way. I found them to be very ethical. They would really go out of their way to help you. And this could be a very good way of finding your way through by speaking to a private student, by speaking at one of the private universities student consultant. I've also found that they would often refer you to the public universities because they've studied at the public universities, so they would be quite well informed. But this could be a very good first port of call for everybody out there.
Thank you so much. Thank you for answering all those questions. Sandy, back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthea, and thank you for all those questions posted in the chat. Thank you, Prof. Zak. Thank you, Zak. Are there any last words that you'd like to leave with our audience today?
Well, I can just want to say thank you for inviting us tonight. I think it's Prof's passion was to help learners, and I say in a different life you would have been a school teacher. But that's his true passion in life, and I think I've learned so much from him and still learning, as we go. And South Africa is, with load shedding, with everything, it's still a wonderful place to live and to study. We've got wonderful degrees and wonderful options, and we are a growing country. And I think if I can encourage the learners to try and make an effort and to stay here, I'd implore them, because we can grow this country, and I love it personally. But that's what I want to add.
Sandy, I can't put it in better words than Zak have done. He said every word, and I would make what he said. I think he did it very well, and I would agree with every single word he said. But thanks for inviting us. It is a great privilege and honor for us to be involved in something like this. And can I wish the matrics well? It is it's important here. Can I wish the parents well and enjoy and take joy out of your son or your daughter out there.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. It was a privilege to sit with you and have this great discussion. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much. And to everybody that's watching, have a great evening, and thank you for spending time with us. Now, signing off with every future Vega Nights video. Over to you, Hein.
Ready? Okay. Now, more than ever, in a world of uncertainty, we reflect. Never before has our planet needed change makers and game changers more. Those who refuse to accept, roll over, settle. Now more than ever, we need bravery. Say no to apathy, to indifference, to what can I do? To being beat. Now's the time to rise up, rise above, say yes to passion. Compassion is in fashion. Dash in forward, upwards and towards a future we want to live in. Pick up the pen. Now more than ever, we need creative minds, strategic leaders, brands built with purpose, businesses that look beyond the bottom line, who see sustainability as the starting line. It's time to rethink. Good thing us thinkers have been staring out of windows our whole lives, imagining better. Imagine that. An idea that changes the world is inside you. Now more than ever, there's hope. A hope that the greatest generation is coming up. A generation not defined by age, but by what it leaves behind. Now more than ever.
Be the greatest.
The greatest.
The greatest.
The greatest generation.
Generation.
Ebang moloko o iphethile.
Be the best generation.
Ebang moetapele wa kamoso.
Iba sesona sizukulwane esiqhamileyo. Be the greatest generation.
Be the greatest generation.
Be the greatest generation.